Hey guys, welcome back to the Calvinist Contradiction, where we are going to be going through another chapter of Where is Calvinism in the opening narrative of the Bible. And we're doing this because we believe if Calvinism is the true interpretation of the scriptures, then it would be clearly, plainly, coherently, consistently taught throughout the text, starting in Genesis and ending, of course, in Revelation. Now, is that the case? We are asking you to decide. And we do this because we believe that Calvinism in particular is like an echo chamber where you only hear the same conflations, the same arguments, and there really isn't any room for a different view. And so we wanted to go back to the scriptures and just ask that question. If this is true, if Calvinism is Christianity, as we have people on the channel saying, if Calvinism is the gospel, then wouldn't it be taught clearly, consistently, and coherently in the beginning of the biblical narrative and carried out throughout the Bible, which we have done with true biblical theology, seeing the roots, even looking at it in the ancient Near Eastern context that it's in. We're going to get into that today in Genesis 47 and as literature. So we've seen tropes, we've seen literary devices which are carried out throughout the whole Bible. The easiest one is the bookends of Genesis 1 through 12 with Revelation 19 through 21, 22. And so let's get in here. Let's open up our Bibles to Genesis 47, and you can click on the link in the description section. I was going to put it in the comments section, but I don't see the comment section for some reason. It didn't pop up. So looking around here, and I don't see it. So I don't know. Sorry, guys, I won't be able to engage with the comment section today, but please still leave your comments. This is on the back end of us asking a question. So, one thing I want to say real quick, I'll do all the announcements at the end, but we are looking for volunteers on the Calvinist Contradiction. I cannot do it all myself. I want to make shorts, and I can't do it because I just don't have the time. I have the book out, but the audio book's coming out, and so I'm working on that. If you would like to volunteer, email us at thecalvinistcontradiction@gmail.com, and I can give you access to like Canva Pro, which we have, and some other stuff to help you out. So we're looking for volunteers. We'd love to work with you. So let's hop in here. So we're coming off the back of where we asked a question where Joseph tells his father and his brothers, hey, I'm going to take you in front of Pharaoh, and if he asks you what you do, tell him you're shepherds. Now, they are shepherds. But the whole point of this is to convince Pharaoh to let them stay in Goshen, which is, because all the Egyptians, they see shepherds as unclean and they loathe them, I think is what it says here, for they are loathsome to the Egyptians. And so he's trying to persuade Pharaoh to give them Goshen. Let them stay in Goshen. We're going to see that there is, we've talked about this a lot. So Calvinists out there, our first question is, and we haven't gotten an answer for this, and we've asked it probably like a dozen times throughout these teachings, is what's the point of trying to convince somebody in a deterministic worldview? What is the point of that? Now, God was never mentioned in doing any of this. And so the Calvinists have to change the scriptures and read between the lines and add unto the text, which is comes with a curse in Revelation, whoever adds unto these things. And so adding into the text that God's actually meticulously controlling all these things and doing these things, although the Bible never ascribes it to him. The Bible does ascribe certain things to the Lord when he's actually doing something. And so what is the point of convincing Pharaoh here? And we're going to go off of that. So Joseph, not God made Joseph. It says, just so Joseph went in and told Pharaoh and said, my father and my brothers and their flocks and their herds and all that they have come out of the land of Canaan, and behold, they are in the land of Goshen. And he took 5 men from his brothers and presented them to Pharaoh. Then Pharaoh said to his brothers, what is your occupation? So this is exactly what Joseph said was going to happen, right? So he says, what's your occupation? So they said to Pharaoh, your servants are shepherds, both we and our fathers. And then they said to Pharaoh, we have come to sojourn in the land, for there is no pastures for your servants' flocks, for the famine is severe in the land of Canaan. Now, therefore, please let your servants live in the land of Goshen. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, your father and your brothers have come to you. The land of Egypt is at your disposal. So again, it doesn't say, then God made Pharaoh say to Joseph. Doesn't say that. But Calvinists add that in there. And we can't say this enough. And we don't ever have Calvinists responding to this fact that we say you're adding unto the text. And here you will. Um, we've had this in my church here where I think I've talked about this. A lot of people just make crap up with theology. And so I've had this in my church where somebody comes in and they have something that they want to teach. And I'm like, where's it in the text? Well, it's somewhere in the Bible. No, show us, show them now. The native people here who are learning the Bible, show them now. Well, it's here. Okay, it doesn't say that. Okay, that's your interpretation of that, which is fine, but you're saying the Bible says that. And then I say, okay, now show me. Well, it's in the Bible somewhere. Well, you need to find it. Well, they can't find it. And I say, then you cannot teach that. Why? Because you're teaching people that the Bible says something. And here they say, in this land where I'm at, where I've been for 10 years, their first thing's going to say, the Bible's been changed. Okay. Changed how? Because yes, it has been. It's been edited. Now, has it been changed where, the main concepts, theological ideas are taken away or changed or manipulated? No. So we have to be careful. And so when a Calvinist would come in, and if they said anything like this, and the person read this and said, where's God meticulously controlling this at all? Where's its teaching this? It's not. So they're going to say, you're a liar. I'm not calling you a liar, Calvinist. I'm saying they would say you're a liar, and the Bible has been changed. That's the Calvinist conclusion here, right? What else could it be? Because you're saying, then God made Joseph say, or then God made Joseph go, then God made Pharaoh say to Joseph, but it never says that. So where are you drawing that from? That's where we're pointing out that your theological system has no clothes. And when we point it out, you just say, don't look at the man behind the curtain. Don't look at that stuff. And then usually you make up some other question that you question beg or go into some diatribe that's not related. And we just keep asking these same questions. So then Pharaoh, the blameworthiness of this or whatever, the intent comes from Pharaoh. He's saying it, not God. Okay. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, your father and your brothers have come to you. The land of Egypt is at your disposal. Settle your father and your brothers in the best of the land. Let them live in the land of Goshen. And if you know any capable men among them, then put them in charge of my flock. But so what is he recognizing that there's a blessing attached to this worm, this Pharaoh, this can't do. And this is where I'm like, okay, we've talked about this a lot, and this is where I really do feel like Calvinism is a cult in the fact of how they look at other people. And I'm not saying you Calvinists out there, I'm saying Calvinism and Reformed theology, the dust is a worm and nobody can do anything except for that which is unpleasing to the Lord at any time. So where are you at, Mr. Calvinist, when Pharaoh here is blessing Israel and giving them the best of the land? It doesn't say anything that God made him do this. It doesn't say anything like that. And so here, where are you landing on that? How do you come to grips with this? Because he can't do anything pleasing in the Lord's sight. So Pharaoh blessing this worm, this all he does is sin continual. We have Calvinists say this all the time in the comment section, that even what they do that is good, that is righteous, is dirty rags before the Lord. And say, well, he's blessing Israel here. Israel picks up on this because we're going to see this in a second, that he blesses Pharaoh. And so what is dirty rags? What is um, true worm theology? Calvinism. It's BS, baloney sausage theology, because you cannot um, you can only theorize about these things, but when they become practical theology, it all falls apart. Because then you have to add again here that this is not pleasing to the Lord's sight, that Pharaoh is putting him in the best place, and he's making them shepherds over his own flock. And yet the biblical text says nothing about this. So you're inferring, you're making crap up. And you guys do all the time. I'm sorry. But the more I deal with the Bible and biblical theology and deriving theology out of the Bible, really, this is like I see people just making stuff up. And I'm like, dude, we don't need to do that because the Bible is clear. Why? Because we can look at it in literature. Again, we wouldn't look at Dracula, which I'm reading right now, and say that God's making Dracula drink people's bloods, or a Renfield eat flies, and this kind of stuff. We wouldn't do that, but you do that with this book because you don't look at it as literature. You don't look at it for what it truly is, ancient literature, and then we ascribe inspiration, at least us as non-Calvinists, because this is not inspired to do anything under Calvinism. That would be a condition, an unconditional election throws that in the trash. So we believe this is inspired, and it is effectual unto salvation, as it says in the scripture. So Joseph then brought his father Jacob and presented him before Pharaoh, and Jacob blessed Pharaoh. So he recognizes that Pharaoh did something here, but you again come in and say, well, that's just God meticulously controlling. Though the text never says this, though you are making crap up at this point. Sorry for cruder language, but it's true about the Bible. And he blesses Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said to Jacob, how many years have you lived? So Jacob said to Pharaoh, the years of my sojourning are 130. Few and unpleasant have been the years of my life, and nor have they attained the years that my father lived during the days of their sojourn, that my fathers lived during the days of their sojourn. And Jacob blessed Pharaoh and went out from his presence. So Joseph settled his father. Again, not so God made Joseph settle his father. It says, so Joseph settled his father and his brothers and gave them, not God gave them, Joseph gave them a possession in the land of Egypt, in the best of the land, in the land of Ramses, as Pharaoh had ordered. Oh, wait, you mean as God had meticulously controlled? No, the biblical narrative doesn't say that. You know who says that? John Calvin, like 5,000 years later. Oh, wait, but the dude in the comment section that Calvinism and Christianity are synonymous? No. How do we know? Because the two names aren't synonymous, but by conflation, because that's the Calvinist tool is conflating everything. They conflate Christianity and Calvinism to be one. But again, why do so many people, meticulously controlled by God, reject Calvinism as bologna sausage? And why do so many people have to not teach Calvinism proper? I don't know what you teach, whoever's listening out there, if it's your flavor of Calvinism, if it's your, your 5 point, 4 point, 3 point, 2 point, no point. You got it from a different doctrine, like the canons of Dort or whatever. I'm talking about the ones that people today are most teaching, which is like, what's his name? I just put this up as a video to watch, where you have Mark Driscoll, who disqualified himself. That's all I have to say. He disqualified himself. He left Acts 29, left, I can't remember the name of his church up there in Seattle. He goes and starts his own ministry, and then he comes out and says free will doesn't exist. Well, he chooses to come out and teach that free will doesn't exist. And so who's the blame? Who's he putting the blame on for all of his sinful and not godly actions that disqualify him, but yet he chooses to still teach and preach? Your head will explode when you think about this. So I don't fault Driscoll that he's not critically thinking about these things, because it's just this, quagmire of theological BS. But when you do think about these things, and you do make a decision, you choose, why, Mr. and Mrs. Calvinists out there, does the majority not choose Calvinism when it is synonymous with Christianity in your own eyes? It's because it's not. It's a sect, a denomination off of there, and at best and at worst, a cult in the fact that it's set up on a man and that it's propagated and not allowed, and dissension isn't allowed in it. There can be no dissension within the thing. Within the That's why when you join Acts 29, as my friend here did when we were pastoring together, everybody needs to sign on that you're a Calvinist, that you subscribe to the 5 points of Calvinism. And if you don't, there's no room for you there. And so that is the cultish aspect that I keep on saying. Now, does everybody ascribe to it as a cult? Does everybody like drink the Kool-Aid, will you say, that they know what they're taking on? No, honestly, no. Because J.D. Greer, if he's not still the head of the Baptist convention or whatever it is, this dude's a Calvinist. How many people know that he's a Calvinist? Probably not a lot. Okay, because he doesn't come out and he doesn't teach it like, a cage stage dude would, or a 5 7 pointer guy, or John Piper does. And so, I had a guy write to me, I need to write you back, sorry, reformed pilgrim. But people don't believe this. People don't believe that God's actually the author of sin. Yes, they do. And I quote it all the time, that unimaginable as it may seem to us today, that from the killings of Dennis Rader to the Nazi camps at Birkenau and Auschwitz, to the rape of young children, it's not God allowing these things. That's us. We say God allows these things in a free world theodicy, a free will theodicy. I'm sorry, uh, and He can use these things to get His end plan done. So, the worst thing that's ever happened in the world, the crucifixion, which is horrible for sure, God ordained that, and so He ordains the rape of kids. And who are you, oh man? Well, no, we don't believe that. We believe that these things are apart from God. That's what the scripture said. Just like some of this stuff, I would say, is apart from God. But yet God uses it to His purpose. Okay? God can use it. That is the definition of sovereignty. He does what He wants, not that He has to meticulously control everything. So let's see here. What did I stop at? Ramses and Pharaoh, as Pharaoh had ordered. Joseph provided his father and his brothers and all of his household with food according to their little ones. Now there was no food in all the land because the famine was very severe, so that the land of Egypt and the land of Canaan languished because of the famine. Joseph gathered all the money that was found in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan for the grain which they bought, and Joseph brought the money into Pharaoh's house. And then when the money was all spent in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan, all the Egyptians came to Joseph and said, "Give us food, for why should we die in your presence? For our money is gone." Then Joseph said, remember, then Joseph, not then God made Joseph. So you have to correct yourself. You have to correct the way you're thinking. You have to read the Bible as literature, not as a Calvinistic not with the Calvinistic documents plastered over it. Okay. Oh, and that John Piper quote that I quoted earlier, that unimaginable as it may seem to us today, that quote, that is a prominent Calvinist, John Piper, having somebody write on desiring God, trying to respond to somebody who had hardships in their life, telling them all this, that it's from God, that God sins. Literally, that's what the whole article is about, how God is the author of the sin. Okay, because real Calvinists, true Calvinists don't have a problem with that. Okay, so I don't know your flavor, but that is what it teaches. God meticulously controls the rape of a young kid. Okay, so you can say God meticulously controls this, but He's not the author of it because somebody else did it. Well, then that's just free will theodicy, and that's just you're trying to what is it? Molinism, I think it's called, where you're trying to have both your cake and eat it too, but that's not true. So be consistent. For our money's gone. Then Joseph said, "Give up the livestock, and I will give you food for your livestock, since your money is gone." So they brought the livestock to Joseph, and Joseph gave them food in exchange for the horses and the flocks and the herds and the donkeys, and they fed them with food in exchange for all the livestock that year. And who's taking care of all this livestock now? We just read that. This is going to be Israel and them taking care of Pharaoh's livestock. When that year was ended, they came to him the next year and said to him, "We will not hide from my Lord that our money is all spent, and that our cattle are my lord's. There's nothing left for my lord except our bodies and our land. Why should we die before your eyes? Both we and our land. Buy us and our land for food, and we and our land will be slaves to Pharaoh. So give us seed that we may live and not die, and that the land may not be desolate. So Joseph bought all the land of Egypt for Pharaoh, and every Egyptian sold his field because the famine was severe upon the land, and thus the land became Pharaoh's. As for the people, he removed them from. As for the people, he removed them to the cities from one end of Egypt's borders to the other. Only the land of the priests he did not buy, for the priests had an allotment from Pharaoh, and they lived off the allotment which Pharaoh gave them. Now, we want to pause here and just talk about this is the ancient Near Eastern aspect of the biblical writers, in the fact that later we're going to see God using these aspects in the when he gives the law, right? Okay, so I think we talked about this a little bit, maybe, but maybe not. I talk about this a lot. Is that like the Ark of the Covenant is really it was shaped after something from Egypt. So God uses a lot of things that they were already used to in Egypt, and He ports them over into his belief system, or the belief system that he wants the Israelites to observe. So here we have like a tithing system being introduced in well, we will in a second, but then here it's of the priestly order. And so like, where it says the magicians in Exodus, when he comes up against these magicians, Moses, and these are the priests, okay? So the priests, they couldn't even stand. And the whole point of the Exodus narrative is the destruction of the Egyptian belief system. And that's what my whole book in this host language was about, was these new perspectives from the ancient Near Eastern aspect. And we see God going to war with the gods of Egypt, right? That's what it says. On that night I went, or during the plagues, I went to war at the gods of Egypt. So when he goes and he turns the Nile into blood, he's going after like, I think his name's Hekmek, the Nile god. And then there's a frog god. So I'll go through all of those. And then, of course, it all culminates in who? The reigning God, which is Pharaoh. And then Osiris is when he dies and he goes into the underworld. And then the younger Pharaoh comes up. So he destroys the system, the religious systematically by taking out the priests. The priests can't stand, they can't do the religious duties, they can't stand before Moses. The people actually, like Pharaoh's right hand man, start believing after he does this. Actually, why are you going to destroy Egypt? Let them go. And then he goes after and he breaks the system when he kills the firstborn son of Pharaoh, because now there won't be a Pharaoh. And then when Pharaoh dies and becomes Osiris, no other buddy's going to step into their place and become Amun Ra, the living incarnation of Amun Ra. And so it breaks the system. That's the whole point of it. I guess from the Calvinist aspect, it's just he's doing that because he hardened Pharaoh's heart, and that's all we ever say. Even though it says that Pharaoh hardened his own heart in there, and all these things are building up to destruction of the religious system that Pharaoh literally says. Moses comes, "Who's your God? I'm God." That's what Pharaoh believes. He's the God living on the earth. But we're not going to go in Exodus, which I wanted to, straight out of this book, because I love Exodus, and I think you guys will learn a lot from looking at it, the ancient Near Eastern aspect that I had studied a ton to write the book here. But we'll go right into Romans, which I'm already preparing for, and I am super excited already. Like, just been reading the first 3 chapters, and I'm so excited to get in there, because I'm like, the first 3 chapters of Romans destroys any notion that you're going to try to pick up. And that's not even 5 yet. That's not even 4, where it goes into like all the stuff we've talked about with Abraham. The first 3. The 3rd chapter literally dismantles. In the first 2 also, but 3 is just so powerful against Calvinism. It was just shocking me the other day. Like, I cannot. The only way that somebody signs on to Calvinism, they read 8 and 9, or they're taught 8 and 9 first, then they just go back and read plainly over, which we're not going to do. And so here we go. We have that ancient Near Eastern root here of the Levites, they're going to have the same systematic. They're going to have a portion that's given from Moses for the to take care of the temple, and they're not going to get a piece of land. It's like the trope's not the real right word here, but this we're going to see this pop up later. Therefore, they did not sell their land. Then Joseph said to the people, behold, I have today bought you and your land for Pharaoh. Now here is seed for you, and you may sow the land. At harvest you shall give a fifth to Pharaoh. Okay? And and 4/5 shall be your own for seed of the field, and for you for your food, and for those of your household, and as food for your little ones. So they said, you have saved our lives. These Calvinists don't get it. These Egyptians can't get it. They're not a part of the Calvinism sect, cult proper, a religious belief system. And so they messed up here, and they meant to say, well, God meticulously made you save our lives. But it doesn't say that. But you add that in there. It's not true. Let us find favor in the sight of our Lord, and we will be Pharaoh's slaves. Joseph made it an institute concerning the land of Egypt, valid to this day, that Pharaoh should have a fifth. Only the land of the priests did not become Pharaoh's. This is the roots of the tithing system that is picked up later under Yahweh, those who observe Yahweh's religious rule. He's taking stuff from the culture that they already knew and implementing it into his belief system. Now, Calvinism has no people who adhere to Reformed theology. This doesn't affect them at all. But for people who read the Bible as literature and critically think about these things, like the authors did, they have this information in here, and they're going to pay it off later. That this is the roots. So God is just so cool that He's using things that they're already aware of. This comes back to like the golden calf, real quick. Let me just break in there. It's like the golden calf, they knew when you look at that instance, it says they saw God burning on the mountain. And so it's not like we think a lot. I guess Calvinists would just say God zapped their mind, made them sin, because God's responsible for that, by building a golden calf to offer sacrifices to. Although he's literally giving them the law that says don't do that. But it says that they need a new mediator. They're not looking for a new God because they know that God's up on the mountain. They only have to, if the golden calf's here, they only have to look up here. These up there are still on the mountain. They can see him there. They need a new Moses because they said Moses went up there and he's gone. He's been gone for a while. So we need a new mediator. And that's why they return back to the belief system that they were familiar with the Apis bull, right? Which was the mediation between the power, the Elohim, the supernatural being behind Apis, the bull, and that's how they mediated to it. And so that's what they were trying to do. It's still wrong, but it's culturally appropriate from where they came from. So it makes a lot, we can say, oh, that's so stupid. How could Aaron be such a doofus? Well, he's only doing what he knew what to do. He's still a doofus for doing it. He shouldn't have done that. But the reason why we think he built this bull just to, I guess, meticulously controlled unto God to replace God for himself so that he could just have more kindling for his fire, because that's the disgusting, dictator aspect of a bully God who just does all these things for his own glory. No, it's rooted in cultural practices that they were familiar with, just like this with the tithing. So when they go in and they like have to give a tenth to what's this? We've never done this before. No, they're used to these things. They've seen these things before and actually implemented how cool here into until this day. So maybe thousands of years later by Joseph himself. Now, Israel lived in the land of Egypt in Goshen, and they acquired property in it and were fruitful and became very numerous. Jacob lived in the land of Egypt 17 years, so the length of Jacob's life was 147 years. When the time for Israel to die drew near, he called his son Joseph. So God made him call his son Joseph. No, stop adding stuff into the scriptures so that you can make crap up. Stop doing that. It says he called his son and said to him, "Please, if I have found favor in your sight, place now your hand under my thigh." That's not thigh here. That's literally to place it under his genitalia to swear upon the lineage. That's, ancient Near Eastern colloquial stuff here that we won't see unless we study it. But so he puts it under his thigh and deal with my kindness in kindness and faithfulness. Again, why is he doing any of this is the question. We're going to leave this off, but listen here. Please do not bury me in Egypt, but when I lie down with my fathers, you shall carry me out of Egypt and bury me in their burial place. And he said, so this is Joseph talking, I will do as you have said. So he's not saying, I already know God's going to meticulously control you to do these things, and I just trust you. Look at this. He says, I will do these things. And he said, swear to me. So he swore upon him. And Israel bowed in worship at the head of the bed. Okay, so we're going to leave this with, what is the point of swearing to me? Mr. Calvinist out there, I can't remember because I talked with so many of you guys who literally said that Jacob was a Calvinist, who says that all these guys are Calvinists. When I said it, I got laughed at. And I was being facetious and just writing in there, like, these guys must have forgotten that they're Calvinists. I get laughed at. I get ridiculed. But then this Calvinist comes in there and he says that Jacob is a Calvinist. Joseph and his brothers, they're all Calvinists. And nobody says anything. And so then I'm just asking, he already said, I will do as you have said. And look what he did for him. Look at all of what, it's not like this guy's untrustworthy. Joseph brings him down, saves his life, saves all his brothers' lives, gives him the best place in all of the land of Egypt. And then he says, I will do as you have said. And okay, well, I already know God's going to meticulously control you to do that. No, swear to me. What is the point of swearing to me? Just like we ended the last one with, what was the point of persuasion? What is the point of convincing somebody? What is the point of you Calvinists writing all day long, making videos, trying to persuade people to choose your deterministic, theistic, deterministic worldview? What's the point? Well, we know the point is that you don't truly believe what you're trying to get other people to sign on to. Because a real 5-point Calvinist, Reformed dude isn't on these things. Because he just believes that God's going to take care of it, right? He's not sharing the gospel. What's the point of sharing the gospel? What's the point of praying? What's the point of petition? What's the point of any of these things? What's the point of asking? What's the point of doing anything when God's just literally meticulously controlling everything? Answer us. We've asked these. What is the point of swearing? What's the point of visions? What's the point of dreams? What's the point of a theophany where God shows up to convince somebody to do something? What is the point of all of this? The answer is quite clear that there is no point in a theistic deterministic worldview. Therefore, that system is BS and not biblical. Okay? Let it sink in. If there's no point of swearing to somebody under a meticulous, controlled, deterministic theology, then it is at odds with the Bible, where it says right here, swear to me. Let it sink in. Critically think about what we're saying here. So there we go. We're getting close. We have 1, 2, 3 more chapters, and then we're going to be getting into Romans, which again, I'm so excited about. Y'all, Like I said, I'm looking for some volunteers for the Calvinist Contradiction. It's really just looking through old videos, or as you go through the video when you're watching it, if you're able to cut and then paste and then upload it onto ours as shorts, I can give you access to Canva Pro, which you can make the thumbnails, which I make and stuff like that. I've made book covers and things like that. Also, I have the Advent book. Go get it, read it. It's just how God's revealed as a theophany throughout the Old Testament, which is the roots of the Trinity doctrine. Also, it is being formed into a audiobook, which will be coming out hopefully tomorrow, but within the next 2 weeks, it should be done tomorrow. And when this comes out, I'll have 25 credits at first to give 25 free audiobooks away in exchange for a review. So I'd love to do that for you. You'll see more as that materializes. There's a link in the description section to follow our ministry over here. You become a part of our newsletter in this country. We've been here for 10 years. And also, if you feel led to support us through prayer, which is really appreciated, and or financially, there's a link down there to head on over there. We love you guys. Thank you so much for your responses in the comment section. If I don't respond to all of them, I read all of them. And so, again, thank you. Whether you agree with us, disagree with us, we are just trying to be a voice out in the wilderness, outside of Calvinism, for people in the Calvinistic systematic or outside of the Calvinistic systematic to hear a different opinion. So we love you guys. I'll see you guys on Monday for another episode of the Calvinist Contradiction Comment Response. Looking forward to hearing from you guys, and I'll talk to you later.